Today you're going to learn how to draw 3 different types of fish. We're going to start with a more simple fish drawing, and then we're going to try some more complicated ones. Pick out a nice dark color for your outline of your fish. I picked blue because it's a fish who lives in the ocean. I'm practicing drawing an oval before I draw it. I practice with my hand before I press my crayon down. Practicing a triangle before I draw it. Okay, now we're going to do the top fin and the bottom fin. You see how I practice like an imaginary drawing before I press down with my crayon? Every time I practice before I press it down. Triangle for the fin on the side, and I'm going to give him some bubbles. What's the first type of fish that you could try to draw? You could also try this next kind. It's a little more complicated. Practicing before I press down. He also has a triangle fin on the back. We're going to give him a half circle for the top and bottom of his fins. And I want you to notice I just waved because I'm showing you that I'm using my other hand to hold down the paper as I'm drawing. That's going to make it easier to draw. I gave him gills to breathe with because fish don't breathe with their mouth. They breathe with gills on the side. This one's going to be the most complicated fish to try. I practiced with my oval. I'm going to give him a pointy face and a tiny eye. This one's going to look the most realistic. I gave him a kind of wiggly fin on the back for his tail. I gave him gills to breathe with. I'm giving him a kind of rectangle shape top fin, lots of bubbles. This is my favorite fish I drew so far, so I'm going to come in with some other colors now. I'm using some lighter colors to draw bubbles in different shapes and textures and patterns. You're going to see why in a second. The light colors are going to look really neat when I paint it. If you don't have any paint, then you can just color the whole thing in with crayons, with markers, whatever you have. I'm even going to come in with some white. You can't see the white, not yet. You're going to see it in just a minute when I come in with my paint. Just going to do a little magic trick with the watercolor paint. So here's my watercolor paint. I'm going to open it and put it near me. I need a paintbrush. Most of the paintbrushes that come with watercolor paint are skinny. You might have a really big paintbrush. So I like to use the skinny paintbrush because it doesn't get too much water soaked into it. Right now I'm going to get a cup of water. There we go. Okay, when I go to paint, I'm going to take my paintbrush, I'm going to put it in the water first. I'm going to wipe it on the edge to get all that water out, so it's just a little bit wet. I don't want my paintbrush to be soaking, dripping wet, because then it'll make a big mess on my paper. Do you notice when I'm painting over the white crayon, you can start to see that white crayon in the light colors. Okay, I go back and get more water, then I dip it in the paint, and then I paint. So this is the steps. Water, paint, paper. Water, paint, paper. Then my paint gets a little dry on my brush. I need some more. Water, paint, paper. Every time. And that's going to give you the best results with your paint. Water, paint, paper. Sometimes it helps to repeat it to yourself as you're painting. Water, paint, paper. Water, paint, paper. And every time I put water on my brush, I squeeze it out on the side of my bowl so it doesn't get too wet. I don't want it to be dripping wet because then it could make a big mess. And I spread out that paint with my paintbrush. And all those crayon marks I put before are showing up now, like magic. It's exciting. I always love doing that. Alright, and I'm coming in with different colors now for my fish's body. You can pick any colors you want. Fish come in every color, and the rainbow, sometimes with lots of patterns, stripes and dots and all kinds. I'm going to try this big brush and see what happens. Dip. Now, when I dip it, I really squeeze it on the edge. Get all that water out before I get my paint. I'm going to put some splotches of paint in the water around the fish, just to give it some texture so it looks kind of murky. Okay. Feel pretty good about it. All done. Can you invent your own kind of fish?